when we look at probably the most fundamental tenet of our faith, which is, I think, what really makes a Christian, is the belief that God became man, that God, in the glory of his divinity, also, as we would say, the second person of the Trinity, Jesus Christ, came and took on our also humanity, so that within this divine person, not only resides the nature of the divinity, but also in its fullness, humanity. Now that humanity, the flesh, the blood, the DNA, the ethnicity is that of the Jewish people. And I bring this up because the first reading, I think, really kind of ties all that together. Okay, and this is what I mean by it. You remember when we did Genesis a couple months ago, we looked at the story of Abraham, and there were these 3 promises that God gave to Abraham that then became important covenants. Okay, and that was what? The promise of land, the promise of descendants, but the third one, which is very relevant for us today as we sit right here in this chapel in 2021, that third promise was that through Abraham and through his descendants and through his DNA and his flesh and his blood, that God would bestow a worldwide blessing on all the nations. And we are beneficiaries of that. We are the result of that. Because we don't have that, as far as I know, that Jewish DNA within us. Maybe we do. Who knows? If you go back far enough, there might be somebody in our family. Who knows? But it's a very, very tiny portion, if any. But still, through Abraham, we are blessed. And so as we look again at the prophet Zechariah, again, post-exile, okay, a message of hope and redemption after a people who were just exiled and people who are returning back to their nation, that the Lord remembers the promise he made to Abraham, despite the chaos and the losing of everything and the destruction of their nation. The Lord says that yet come people, the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city shall approach another and say, come, let us implore the favor of the Lord. And then at the very end of this first reading, yes, take hold of every Jew by the edge of his garment and say, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Okay. So this is fulfilled in that person, in that Jew, okay, flesh and blood, descendant of Abraham, in the God-made man, Jesus Christ, who is also not only the God-made man, but he's like, I don't know how a word to describe it, but like just the representation of all of Israel. As you read the Gospels, Jesus takes on many of the past events of the Israelites in the Old Testament. He redoes them, recapitulates is that fancy word for that. Like he relives it. And now through him, all the nations are blessed, because then when we read St. Paul, a very devout and faithful Jew, St. Paul looks at the person of Jesus Christ, remembers the promise of Abraham, thinks of readings like this in Zechariah, and says, well, no, it's not necessarily the ethnicity, the blood, it's now the faith. The faith in the God-made man. That all the world now, through grace, all the world, all the nations will come to him. And as you read the Acts of the Apostles and read his letters, you see non-Jews, Gentiles from Egypt and from Europe and all over now come into faith in him. But remember, we are the result. We are the recipients of one of God's promises that he made to Abraham. And now through him and through faith in him, we too, in a very real way, become his beloved sons and daughters of God the Father through Jesus Christ. And we are blessed through him. May God bless you.